The scent of old wood and fresh paint clung to the air of our Brooklyn brownstone, a fragrance I had personally curated over years of tireless work. I was an architect, an artist of spaces, and this house, this magnificent, historic structure, was my magnum opus, a living testament to the perfect life I believed Natalie and I were building. Every exposed brick wall, every custom-milled banister, every piece of light-catching stained glass was chosen, designed, and often installed by my own hands, always with Natalie's discerning eye and Lily's laughter in mind. We bought it when Lily was just a toddler, a wreck of a place, but I saw its potential, its bones. I saw our future within its walls. Natalie, my brilliant art curator, seemed to share my vision entirely. She would walk through the newly plastered rooms, her elegant fingers tracing the lines of the built-in bookshelves I designed for her extensive collection, and tell me, Stephen, darling, you've created a sanctuary. This isn't just a house, it's a dream star. Her praise was the greatest reward, a validation of the late nights and the colossal fortune I was pouring into this place. My substantial earnings, bolstered by some shrewd investments, flowed freely into the brownstone's transformation. I trusted Natalie implicitly with our joint finances. She had an acute business sense, far sharper than mine when it came to the practicalities of money management, and I was content to focus on the aesthetics, the soul of our home. I saw the brownstone as a physical manifestation of our perfect life together, a fortress of warmth and beauty in the relentless churn of the city. We hosted lavish parties, our curated art collection gleaming under strategically placed lights, our friends laughing, Lily often a tiny, bright whirlwind weaving through the legs of adults. Those were the nights I felt truly, unequivocally blessed. I remember vague conversations years ago about a prenuptial agreement, a formality, something we both signed quickly, almost playfully, before the real work of building our life began. It felt utterly meaningless then, a piece of paper that couldn't possibly account for the intricate tapestry of love and shared dreams we were weaving. How naive I was, how utterly blind to the subtle shifts in the currents beneath our seemingly tranquil surface. The first cracks in the facade were so faint, I almost dismissed them as dust motes in a sunbeam. They began as increasingly cold arguments, not explosive shouting matches, but a chilling distance in Natalie's voice, an edge I hadn't heard before. It started small. I'd suggest a weekend getaway, a quiet dinner, and she would cite her demanding schedule, her latest acquisition for the gallery, or Lily's school commitments. Stephen, you know how busy I am, she'd say, her eyes already drifting back to her tablet. I, in my earnest, slightly clumsy way, tried to bridge the gap. I cooked her favorite meals, brought her flowers, even attempted to surprise her with tickets to a show she'd mentioned. Each gesture met with a polite, almost weary smile, and the feeling that I was somehow missing the point. My architecture practice was booming, demanding more of my time, and I often retreated into my designs, seeking solace in the tangible perfection of blueprints when the emotional landscape of my home felt increasingly nebulous. I remember one evening, standing in the vast, open-plan kitchen I had designed, the custom cabinets gleaming, the marble island reflecting the soft glow of the pendant lights. Lily was asleep, and Natalie was on her phone, as usual. I tried to talk to her, to understand what was happening. Is everything okay, Nat? You seem distant lately. Is it me? Is it work? She looked up, her expression unreadable. It's just life, Stephen. Things change. We're both busy. Maybe you're just focused on your projects, as always. There was a subtle accusation in her tone, a quiet turning of the tables that left me feeling disoriented. I started to question myself, my own emotional availability. Had I, in my obsession with the brownstone, become emotionally distant? Was I too consumed by my work? I began to notice other things. She started referring to the brownstone not as our dream, but as my project. Stephen's brownstone, she'd tell her friends, a slight, almost imperceptible emphasis on the possessive. She became even more opaque about our finances, dismissing my occasional queries with a wave of her hand. Don't worry your head about it, darling. I've got it all under control. You focus on your beautiful buildings. I deferred to her, as I always had. My trust in her was absolute, a foundational pillar of our relationship. I believed she was protecting me from the mundane details, allowing me to soar creatively. But the unease began to gnaw at me, a persistent, low-grade hum beneath the surface of my consciousness. My sanctuary, the brownstone, started to feel less like a haven and more like a beautifully crafted cage, its bars invisible but increasingly present. I convinced myself it was stress, that we were simply navigating a challenging phase, that our love, forged in the fires of shared ambition and the boundless joy of Lily, would see us through. I clung to the memories of our early days, the easy laughter, the shared dreams, the way her hand felt in mine. I tried to rekindle that warmth, those sparks, but it felt like striking a match against a damp stone. The flame would sputter, then die, leaving behind only the cold scent of sulfur. The air in the brownstone, once filled with the promise of our future, now felt thin, almost brittle, as if holding its breath. I was walking on eggshells, unsure of what might shatter. The shattering came on a Tuesday afternoon, a day that started like any other. I was in my studio, sketching concepts for a new museum wing, lost in the intricate dance of line and form. Natalie called me, her voice clipped, formal. Asterisk Stephen, I need you to come home. We need to talk. Asterisk the urgency in her tone, devoid of any warmth, sent a jolt of dread through me. I drove home, the familiar streets of Brooklyn blurring past, my heart hammering against my ribs. When I walked into the brownstone, the silence was deafening, heavy and expectant. Natalie was waiting in the living room, perched on the edge of the sofa I'd designed, a sleek, minimalist piece in muted tones. Across from her, a stern-faced woman in a tailored suit sat with a briefcase on her lap. My eyes went immediately to the stack of papers on the glass coffee table between them. My world, the one I had meticulously built and believed in, dissolved in that instant. Natalie's gaze was cold, unyielding. Asterisk Stephen, this is my lawyer, Ms. Davies. I'm filing for divorce. Asterisk the words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. I staggered, gripping the back of an armchair for support. Divorce? It was an alien concept, a foreign language I didn't understand. I stared at Natalie, searching her eyes for any flicker of the woman I loved, the woman who had shared my bed, my dreams, the mother of my daughter. There was nothing, just an empty, polished surface. Ms. Davies, in a voice as cold and sharp as a scalpel, began to explain. The papers were presented, a thick, brutal stack of legalese. She pointed to a clause, then another. The prenuptial agreement, the one I vaguely remembered signing years ago as a formality, had been meticulously amended, updated, and weaponized. I was losing everything. The brownstone, my sanctuary, my masterpiece, was to be hers. The substantial art collection, carefully curated, much of it purchased with my earnings, was to be hers. Even my access to Lily, my precious daughter, was to be severely limited, a few carefully stipulated hours under supervision. My mind reeled. How? When? Ms. Davies continued, detailing how Natalie had systematically manipulated our joint finances, diverting assets into trusts under her sole control, trusts I knew nothing about. She had meticulously documented my emotional distance, my long hours at work, my perceived withdrawal, building a damning case for her full custody. She had been planning this, methodically, ruthlessly, for years. The realization was a gut punch, a betrayal so profound it left me breathless. This wasn't just a divorce, it was a hostile takeover. Her true intention was laid bare: to acquire the brownstone and its considerable value as a stepping stone for her own career ambitions, a new life without me, using our daughter as leverage. The perfect life I had so carefully constructed was a fraud, and behind it, Natalie had been dismantling me piece by piece, brick by brick, from the inside out. The brownstone, once a symbol of my love, now felt like a tomb. The immediate aftermath was a blur of legal documents, hushed phone calls, and the sickening realization that the woman I had loved and trusted implicitly had been systematically dismantling my life from the inside out. The public divorce battle that ensued was grueling, a brutal spectacle of character assassination and financial dissection. Every intimate detail of our lives, every perceived flaw I possessed, was laid bare in court. I watched as years of my dedication, my earnings, my very identity, were stripped away, piece by piece. The brownstone, my architectural masterpiece, the physical manifestation of my love, became a battleground. I fought, of course, but the meticulously prepared case against me, built on Natalie's calculated documentation of my emotional distance and her carefully constructed financial web, was formidable. I lost much of my material wealth, the art collection, and ultimately, the brownstone itself. The pain of losing the house was immense, a deep, aching wound in my soul. It wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was a repository of dreams, of shared laughter, of Lily's first steps. But amidst the crushing despair, a fierce, unwavering beacon ridged Lily, my daughter, her bright eyes, her innocent questions, her small hand in mine. She was everything. The fight for co-custody became my sole purpose, the anchor in the storm of my collapsing life. I was no longer fighting for possessions, for status, for the illusion of a perfect life. I was fighting for Lily, for the right to be a full, present father. My love for her was a primal force, a fire that burned brighter than any grief or anger. I spent every spare moment with her, reading her stories, building intricate Lego castles, taking her to the park. I focused on being there, truly there, cherishing every giggle, every hug. I saw the relief in her eyes when I picked her up from school, the way she clung to me, and it fueled my resolve. Natalie's legal team painted me as an absent, work-obsessed father, but Lily's unwavering affection, her constant desire for my presence, spoke volumes. I realized then that while Natalie had meticulously planned to strip me of everything material, she couldn't strip me of the one thing that truly mattered, my bond with our daughter. The legal battle for Lily was a different kind of war, one I fought with the raw, untamed force of paternal love. Every court appearance, every mediation session, I held onto the image of Lily's face, her bright smile, her trusting gaze. This wasn't about winning. It was about protecting her, about ensuring she knew she was loved, unconditionally, by me. The brownstone had been a symbol of my ambition, a monument to a life I thought I wanted. Lily was the heart of the life I truly needed. The day the judge granted me co-custody was a turning point, a moment of profound liberation amidst the wreckage. It wasn't a complete victory, not in the traditional sense, but it felt like the most significant triumph of my life. I had lost the brownstone, my art, a substantial portion of my fortune, but I had won my daughter. The weight lifted from my shoulders was immense, replaced by a quiet, fierce determination. The old Stephen, the one obsessed with grand designs and public acclaim, began to recede, replaced by a man stripped bare, yet paradoxically, more whole. I found a modest apartment in a different part of Brooklyn, smaller, simpler, with views of a community garden instead of the Manhattan skyline. It was a stark contrast to the sprawling brownstone, but it felt like home in a way the brownstone never truly did after Natalie's betrayal. Lily helped me unpack, her small hands carefully placing her favorite stuffed animals on her new bed. We painted her room a cheerful yellow, a color I would never have considered in my previous, more austere aesthetic. In this new space, unburdened by the ghosts of a false perfection, I started to discover a different kind of joy. Simple moments became treasures, Lily's laughter echoing in the small living room, making pancakes together on Saturday mornings, evening walks through the park. I saw the world through her eyes, vibrant and full of wonder, and it rekindled a spark within me that had long been dormant, buried under layers of ambition and material pursuit. I started sketching again, but this time, my designs weren't for grand, private residences. They were for community centers, for affordable housing projects, for spaces that fostered connection and belonging. The experience had forced me to reevaluate everything. True wealth, I realized, wasn't measured in square footage or art collections, but in the strength of human connection, in the integrity of one's actions, and in the love shared with those who truly matter. I began to find a new purpose, a different kind of artistic passion, channeling my talent into projects that genuinely served people rather than just impressing them. This modest apartment, with its peeling paint and creaky floors, felt more solid, more real than any meticulously renovated brownstone could ever be. It was built on a foundation of truth, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt truly free. Life, in its relentless way, continued to unfold. Months turned into a year, then two. My new architectural practice, focused on community-centric projects, began to flourish. The work was fulfilling in a way my previous, more opulent commissions never were. I found immense satisfaction in designing a welcoming library for a low-income neighborhood or creating accessible housing for seniors. These projects, born from the ashes of my personal devastation, resonated with a deeper, more authentic part of myself. My relationship with Lily deepened into an unbreakable bond. She thrived in our simpler life, a bright, resilient spirit. We had our routines, our inside jokes, our unwavering connection. The brownstone, once the epicenter of my universe, became a distant memory, a beautiful, gilded cage from which I had escaped. Sometimes I would drive past it, a ghost in the familiar Brooklyn streetscape. It stood there, imposing and elegant, just as I had designed it, but it no longer held any power over me. It looked cold, almost sterile, without the warmth of a genuine family within its walls. Word trickled back to me, through mutual acquaintances, about Natalie. Despite her financial victory, her acquisition of the brownstone, and the substantial assets, she found herself increasingly isolated. Her ruthless tactics during the divorce had not gone unnoticed in our tight-knit social circle. Her reputation was tarnished, her name often whispered with a mix of pity and disdain. The brownstone, her grand prize, felt hollow, a monument to her ambition but devoid of the genuine warmth and love that truly makes a home. She had achieved her career goals, ascended to a more prominent position in the art world, but at what cost? I heard she rarely entertained there anymore, the grand rooms often empty, the silence echoing. My own life, meanwhile, blossomed in unexpected ways. I found love again, a quiet, steady companionship with a woman who valued authenticity and kindness above all else. She understood my past, embraced Lily, and found joy in the simple, profound beauty of everyday life. I had lost a fortune, a home, and a marriage, but I had gained something immeasurably more valuable, a profound understanding of what truly matters. True wealth, I had learned, wasn't in possessions or prestige, but in the steadfast love of my daughter, the integrity of my work, and the genuine connections I cultivated. The brownstone divide had indeed split my life in two, but it was on the other side of that divide that I finally found my way home.